Have you ever walked into a room and felt like everyone had already decided who you were before you even said a word? Like no matter how long people spend around you, they never seem to truly see you? It's as if your presence alone confuses them. Not because you're unclear, but because you don't fit the mold they're used to. Perhaps you're the kind of man who doesn't speak just to be heard. Someone who chooses his words with care, and when he finally speaks, people listen. This is the energy the world feels when it encounters a Sigma male. He doesn't follow the usual currents. He navigates life on his own terms, guided by a code that isn't dictated by society's expectations. He's not loud, but his presence is commanding. He doesn't seek attention, yet he's often the one everyone ends up noticing. In a world that obsessed with networking, affirmation, and groupthink, most people filter life through a deeply social lens. They constantly reach out for connection, hoping to be seen, liked, and accepted. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. After all, humans are wired for community, but a quiet tension emerges when they meet someone who doesn't chase those same things. A Sigma male operates from a different frequency. He's not looking for applause, and he doesn't follow the well-trodden path of validation-seeking behavior. Instead, he watches, he listens, he absorbs the room before deciding if it's even worth contributing to. And when he speaks, he doesn't waste words. Everything he says is purpose, and it tends to land with a subtle but undeniable impact. This silence, this stillness, it unsettles people. They're not used to someone who isn't trying to perform or please. Because they can't decode him, they assume he's cold, arrogant, or even distant. The truth is far simpler but harder for many to accept. Most people simply don't understand Sigma males. They project labels onto him, trying to explain away what they can't categorize. They assume he's aloof when he's just observant. They mistake his independence for rejection, his quiet for weakness. Some even go so far as to try and mold him into something more familiar, something more palatable to the crowd. But the reality is, society needs men like this. Men who don't move just because the herd does. Men who stay grounded in their solitude, who find insight in detachment and wisdom in distance. If any of this strikes a chord with you, if it feels like your reflection, it's not a signal to dim your light. It's not an invitation to become more digestible for others. You don't need to alter your nature to make people more comfortable. Let them misinterpret you. Let them underestimate what they can't define. You were never meant to be fully grasped by the average eye. You were designed for a different path, one that requires silence, strength, and unwavering authenticity. True power doesn't need to explain itself. It doesn't need to shout or prove anything. It simply is steady, rooted, and unapologetically self-owned. One, they think he's antisocial, but he's just anti-bullshit. Many people are quick to misjudge the Sigma male, often labeling him as antisocial, distant, or withdrawn. But the reality is far from that assumption. He isn't avoiding people out of dislike. He's carefully choosing who to allow into his world. It's not a matter of social aversion, but of discernment. He's not hiding from interaction. He's dodging nonsense. Most social environments come with unspoken expectations. To laugh at jokes that don't land, to nod in agreement with ideas you don't buy into, or to pretend you're emotionally invested in conversations that feel utterly meaningless. The Sigma male simply won't do that. He has no interest in shallow rituals or empty performances. That's where the misunderstanding begins. Picture a social event where someone's obviously fishing for praise, another is bragging about connections that barely exist, and everyone else is desperately pretending to have life all figured out. The Sigma male notices the inauthenticity instantly. He doesn't make a scene. He simply fades into the background or quietly exits, not out of arrogance, but out of a deep craving for sincerity. He doesn't reject people. He rejects pretenses. If a conversation is genuine, he can sit with a janitor and discuss life, philosophy, pain, and hope for hours. He doesn't care about your status, only your sincerity. He's drawn to raw honesty and emotional intelligence, not showmanship. He knows how to tell the difference between someone being real and someone performing. And when the masks come on, when charm becomes manipulation and small talk becomes noise, he detaches. Not because he's cold, but because he values his energy. His presence is intentional. His time is sacred. So when people complain that he's antisocial, they're really saying He doesn't play by our rules. But to the rare few who value depth over drama, that same selective presence is refreshing. He doesn't fake smiles. He doesn't perform for applause. And he definitely doesn't entertain illusions. What looks like rudeness is actually a radical form of self-respect. One, most people are too afraid to practice. Two, they label him weird when they can't label him at all. People are most comfortable when they can categorize others. They want clean definitions, easy tags: leader, follower, introvert, extrovert, funny guy, serious guy. It makes social dynamics feel safe and predictable. But the Sigma male doesn't play along. He fits none of these boxes, and that confuses people. When someone doesn't act according to an expected role, people feel off balance. So they reach for a word that allows them to regain control. Weird. The Sigma male doesn't shout to lead, nor does he bow to follow. He speaks when there's purpose and listens when silence serves better. One minute he's lost in deep thought. The next he drops a sharp, witty remark that cuts through the noise. His rhythm is his own, unpredictable, unforced. And that unpredictability doesn't sit well with people who rely on labels to feel secure. Instead of saying, I don't get this guy, they say he's strange. But what they really mean is, he's different, and that unsettles me. You've probably seen it happen. A room full of people hyped about something trivial, gossiping or obsessing over trends, or playing attention-seeking games. And then there's that one man in the corner. Calm, detached, unmoved. That's the Sigma. He's not unimpressed to seem cool. He's genuinely disinterested in pretending to care about things that don't matter. That's when the whisper starts. He's kind of weird, isn't he? But the truth is, weird is often a lazy label for someone others don't understand. It's code for, he doesn't make sense of my worldview, and that bothers me. Sigma males defy social templates. They act from within, not based on how others might perceive them. So when people can't classify him, they feel threatened. Some admire the mystery. Others resent the unpredictability. But almost no one remains unaffected. What they call weird, he calls freedom. And in a world addicted to conformity, that's the most unsettling thing of all. 3, they don't know whether to admire or resent him, so they do both. There's something about the Sigma male that leaves people torn. They don't know whether to look up to him or push him away. He evokes a strange dual reaction, one of admiration and quiet resentment. And sometimes those feelings exist simultaneously within the same person. He doesn't try to provoke this. He's not being mysterious for attention or distant for effect. He simply lives life on his own terms, steadily, calmly, and without the need for external validation. He's not trying to impress anyone. He's not competing with anyone. He's just being who he is. But in doing that, he unknowingly becomes a mirror for others. And what that mirror reflects can be uncomfortable. His silence carries more weight than some people's loudest declarations. His discipline, restraint, and refusal to perform highlight the noise and insecurity of others. They begin to ask themselves uncomfortable questions. Why does his calm presence make my loudness feel fake? Why does his independence make my need for attention feel shallow? Why do I feel inferior when he's not even trying? And instead of confronting those insecurities, they project them onto him. They label him cold, detached, aloof, or even arrogant. But behind the judgment is a subtle kind of envy. They watch the way he can detach from chaos, how he can walk away from drama without losing sleep, how he remains composed even when others seek to provoke him. In social settings, he doesn't rush to speak. He lets the room talk itself into exhaustion, then steps in only when his words can offer value. This quiet command unnerves people. It reveals the difference between making noise and making impact. That's intimidating. Most men are conditioned to seek approval, to be liked, to belong, to be validated. The Sigma male doesn't play that game. That alone is disruptive. It forces people to confront their own dependence on applause and validation. So what happens? Some people look at him and think, I wish I could be like that. Others look at him and think, who does he think he is? And some think both. But none of that matters to him. He doesn't alter his path to fit anyone's feelings. He doesn't dilute his identity for comfort. He moves with integrity, thinks with independence, and speaks only when truth demands it. He's not here to be understood, and he's certainly not here to be controlled. Whether people admire him, envy him, or misunderstand him entirely, that's not his concern. His only focus is to walk his path with purpose, clarity, and authenticity. And that, more than anything, is what shakes people to their core, because deep down, they know he's free in ways they're still afraid to be. For they confuse his integrity for stubbornness. To the untrained eye, the Sigma male may appear inflexible, too strong-willed, too difficult to work with, or unwilling to compromise. Critics often reduce him to one-dimensional labels: stubborn, unyielding, or even selfish. But these accusations aren't rooted in truth. They're reactions to something deeper that many find hard to process: his unwavering integrity. The Sigma male doesn't adjust his morals to suit others' egos, nor does he bend his principles just to make things easier in a group dynamic. He won't nod along to ideas that clash with his beliefs, and he certainly won't stay silent just to avoid discomfort. His convictions are deeply held, not performative. Most people go along with the crowd even when their intuition signals something is wrong. They choose the path of least resistance, suppressing disagreement to avoid tension, following trends instead of truths, and expecting everyone else to do the same. But when they encounter a man who calmly refuses to dilute his values just to maintain social comfort, it unsettles them. He'll quietly walk away from a dishonest deal, detach from a group whose ethics don't align with his own, and say no when silence would have been easier, not to prove a point, but to preserve his sense of self. And this rattles people. Those who build their morality on group consensus feel exposed in his presence. His integrity silently highlights their compromises, so they label him difficult, when in reality, they're simply uncomfortable in the presence of someone who won't trade authenticity for approval. What they call stubbornness is actually clarity. It's the strength to distinguish between genuine peace and hollow conformity. The Sigma male isn't trying to win debates. He's just unwilling to lose himself for the sake of fragile harmony. That kind of restraint offends those who bend too easily and regret it quietly. And while they may never openly admit it, even his harshest critics hold a reluctant respect for a man who stands out firmly in his truth. 5. They misinterpret his contentment as a lack of ambition. In a society that equates ambition with noise, grinding 24/7, showing off wins, collecting titles like trophies, the Sigma male's quiet approach can be deeply misunderstood. He doesn't wear his goals on his sleeve. He doesn't announce every achievement or chase validation with every step. So when people see him sitting still, sipping his coffee with calm, or walking slowly while others race to nowhere, they assume he lacks drive. They confuse his peace with passivity. What they're really witnessing, though, is a rare and powerful form of contentment, a centered confidence that doesn't need to shout. Sigma males understand that movement without direction is wasted energy. They don't run simply because others are. For them, true ambition is not about being seen chasing something. It's about building quietly, purposefully, while others burn themselves out seeking attention. The Sigma male works in the shadows, not for recognition, but for internal satisfaction. He sets goals, pursues growth, and executes with precision, but he does it without the need for applause. And sometimes that includes pausing, reflecting, recharging. He understands something many miss. That presence is not the absence of ambition, but the discipline to balance hustle with stillness. People conditioned to equate urgency with progress often interpret this calm as laziness. But that's their lens, not his reality. He's not ruled by deadlines imposed by others, nor driven by insecurity. He operates from a place of quiet mastery, measuring success not by how loud it is, but by how aligned it feels. So when others whisper that he's unmotivated, he doesn't flinch. He knows what they don't. That ambition doesn't need to be noisy to be real. Sometimes the most driven people are also the most still, because they found the kind of balance that doesn't burn them out. 6. They get offended when their manipulation doesn't work on him. There are people who navigate the world by pulling strings, emotional manipulators who rarely say what they want directly, but instead use guilt, silence, or exaggerated vulnerability to control outcomes. They thrive on reactions. They rely on emotional bait, a sigh here, a guilt trip there, a charming smile laced with hidden agendas. But nothing infuriates them more than a man who won't play along. And that's exactly what the Sigma male represents. The immovable object to their manipulative force. He doesn't react to silent treatments or passive-aggressive remarks. When someone says, "I guess you're too busy for me now," expecting him to grovel for forgiveness, he offers no response. Not because he's indifferent, but because he's aware. He sees the emotional hooks, the subtle traps, and simply steps around them. When someone says, "After all I've done for you," to stir guilt, the Sigma doesn't lash out or explain himself. He simply disengages. Calmly, quietly, powerfully. This unnerves manipulators. They feed on attention, and the Sigma starves them of it. He's not being cruel. He's being deliberate. He's learned to recognize affection used as a weapon, kindness that comes with strings, and warmth that's only transactional. And instead of retaliating, he removes himself. He doesn't argue with manipulation. He renders it powerless by refusing to acknowledge it. That's what terrifies people who are used to controlling others through emotional theatrics. They may call him cold or heartless, but what they really mean is, "You didn't fall for the script I've used on everyone else." And that's exactly why they fear him. Because a man who can't be manipulated is a man who can't be controlled. 7. They assume he's lonely, not realizing he's recharged by solitude. To the average person, being alone looks like a problem. We're taught that solitude is a condition to be fixed, something that suggests sadness, social failure, or emotional withdrawal. So when people observe the Sigma male spending long hours by himself, opting for quiet over company, and choosing reflection over chatter, they jump conclusions. He must be lonely, but they couldn't be more wrong. For the Sigma male, solitude isn't a punishment. It's a sanctuary. It's not about isolation. It's about restoration. When the world gets noisy, chaotic, and performative, he steps away not to escape, but to recalibrate. Alone time for him is a sacred ritual. It's where real thinking happens, where self-awareness sharpens, and where clarity finds space to grow. While others distract themselves from their own thoughts with constant company, he dives into his own mind, unafraid of what he might find there. Picture him on a weekend, walking alone through nature, reading something deeply philosophical, or just sitting with his thoughts. Completely at ease. He's not lonely. He's deeply connected to himself. That stillness gives him strength. It gives him focus. It's a foundation that supports everything else he does. And while others panic in silence, he thrives in it. They fill the air with noise to feel alive. He finds life in the quiet. So when people assume he's isolated, they're really just projecting their discomfort with their own solitude. He doesn't need others to feel whole. In fact, solitude is where he becomes most whole. It's not disconnection, it's alignment, not absence. It's presence, deeply rooted within. 8. They call him cold because he doesn't fake warmth. In a culture obsessed with surface-level friendliness and emotional theatrics, the Sigma male's demeanor can feel jarring to those expecting social niceties. He isn't the kind to flash a forced grin during an awkward conversation or compliment someone just to smooth over tension. He doesn't go out of his way to fake enthusiasm, and that unsettles people who are used to emotional performances. Instead of participating in this charade, he chooses authenticity, even if that means being perceived as distant. The truth is, he simply refuses to pretend. Where others force laughter, extend exaggerated greetings, or maintain eye contact just to appear polite, the Sigma male offers something far rarer: emotional honesty. If he's happy to see you, you'll know. If he respects you, it'll show, not in empty words, but in his presence, his attention, and his actions. When he's uninterested, he doesn't pretend otherwise. His emotional economy is built on genuine interaction, not performative affection. This is why many misinterpret his quiet, measured presence as coldness. They expect social warmth on demand, and when they don't receive it, they feel rejected. But what they're really experiencing is a man unwilling to fake connection. The paradox is that his emotional expressions, though less frequent, are far more powerful. A compliment from him means something. A smile from him is real. His warmth isn't constant, but it's deeply sincere when it appears. To acquaintances, he may seem aloof, but to those who earn his trust, He's unwaveringly loyal, profoundly empathetic, and emotionally rich. He doesn't express everything outwardly, but what he does reveal is deeply felt. His refusal to fake warmth isn't emotional detachment, it's emotional integrity. And in a world full of smiling masks, that kind of honesty can feel threatening to those who aren't used to it. 9. They misread his independence as arrogance. The Sigma male's independence is like a sharp blade. It cuts clean through social dependence, and because of that, it's often mistaken for arrogance. People are conditioned to lean on each other for constant feedback, approval, and direction. So when they encounter someone who doesn't seek consensus, who doesn't ask for permission, who operates entirely on his own internal compass, they feel unsettled. And instead of understanding his self-reliance, they brand it as superiority. But the Sigma male isn't driven by a sense of being better than others. He's simply built to navigate the world alone when necessary. He makes decisions without needing group support. He follows his intuition, researches independently, and trusts his inner voice over popular opinion. When others debate endlessly, he arrives at conclusions. When others crowdsource their self-worth, he cultivates his own. That's not arrogance, it's autonomy. Social structures often reward the visible climber, the person networking loudly, asking for validation, and playing the political game. The Sigma doesn't care for any of that. He'll forge his own path without fanfare. He doesn't dominate others to lead, nor does he follow to belong. He just moves, quietly, confidently, and with purpose. To the insecure, this looks like aloofness. To the unaware, it looks like pride. But to those who see clearly, it's something rare. A man who doesn't need anyone to approve of his path in order to walk it. His independence isn't a rejection of others. It's a refusal to depend on external scaffolding for internal direction. 10. They underestimate his emotional depth because of his restraint. Because the Sigma male doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve, many assume there's little emotional depth beneath the surface. In truth, nothing could be further from reality. His emotional life is rich, complex, and intensely introspective, but he doesn't broadcast it for attention or drama. He is selective in what he shares, measured in how he shares it, and intentional about with whom he shares it. Unlike those who seek emotional validation from anyone who will listen, the Sigma male processes his feelings internally first. He doesn't react impulsively or explode in conflict. He takes time to understand his emotions, and only when he has clarity does he respond, calmly, logically, and with impact. When it comes to vulnerability, he treats it as sacred. He's not afraid to be open, but he doesn't offer that part of himself casually. Only those who prove trustworthy are invited into his inner world. This emotional restraint is often misread as emotional absence, but that's because society is trained to equate expression with depth. The Sigma knows better. He understands that uncontrolled emotional outbursts can often create more chaos than clarity. He's not cold, he's in control. And that control is what allows him to stay grounded during turbulence, offer solutions rather than sympathy, and hold space for others without being consumed by their drama. His emotional intelligence is quiet but profound. He sees beneath the surface. He feels deeply, and he responds with clarity rather than confusion. Just because he doesn't perform his emotions doesn't mean they aren't there. In fact, they run deeper than most realize because they've been earned, examined, and refined. 11. They don't realize his silence is a strategic advantage. In a world that often mistakes verbosity for intelligence and constant talking for leadership, the Sigma male silence confounds people. To the casual observer, he may appear withdrawn or disengaged, but in reality, he's simply observing, collecting data, reading the room, analyzing dynamics. His silence isn't a void, it's a strategy. While others rush to speak, to fill uncomfortable pauses, or establish dominance through volume, the Sigma male remains still. His listening is active, his observation sharp. He notices body language others miss, picks up on contradictions in conversations, and senses undercurrents others ignore. Silence allows him to gather information, assess intentions, and decide when and if his voice is needed. When he does speak, his words carry weight. They haven't been rushed, they've been curated. Because he doesn't speak often, people listen when he does. He avoids unnecessary chatter and never dilutes his presence with noise. That makes his communication more powerful and his opinions more memorable. In professional settings, this silence becomes a unique advantage. In negotiations, he lets others talk themselves into revealing too much. In crisis, his calm steadiness is grounding. In leadership, his measured tone earns trust because it reflects control, not chaos. His reputation builds slowly but firmly. People begin to realize that his quiet carries more substance than most people's speeches. His silence is not passive, it's purposeful. And in a culture where attention is often mistaken for influence, his quiet wisdom sets him apart as someone who doesn't need to be loud to be heard. 12. They fail to recognize his unique leadership style. Leadership is usually associated with charisma, command, and public influence. But the Sigma male leads differently, not from front of stage, but from the quiet edges of the room. He doesn't rely on loud speeches or status to guide others. Instead, he leads by example, through consistency, competence, and clarity. People are drawn to him not because he demands attention, but because he embodies strength without ego. His leadership emerges organically. He becomes the one others look to when things go sideways. Not because he asked for it, but because he remains composed when others panic. He doesn't tell people what to do. He simply does. And those who respect results tend to follow. In group settings, he often takes a backseat, empowering others to shine, letting systems speak louder than authority, and avoiding the spotlight. But his influence is undeniable. Ideas he plants grow roots. Suggestions he makes shift direction. He creates frameworks that outlast him and solutions that don't need credit. That's shadow leadership, power without posturing. And in times of chaos, his style truly shines. While others spin in anxiety or scramble for control, he becomes the anchor, calm, precise, grounded. His emotional control allows him to assess, decide, and lead without panic. People trust him not because he's the loudest voice, but because he's the most stable presence. His leadership isn't traditional. It's transformative. It doesn't command, it compels. It doesn't flash, it functions. And while many may overlook him in moments of peace, when storms roll in, it's his quiet authority that becomes indispensable. Conclusion: the unseen power of the misunderstood. In a world that runs on labels and thrives on predictability, the Sigma male remains a living paradox, often seen, seldom understood. He walks through life with a presence that is both understated and unshakable. People try to box him in, but he doesn't fit. They project assumptions onto him, but he doesn't absorb them. And when their expectations fail to mirror his truth, they misjudge him. Not because he is flawed, but because he operates beyond their frame of reference. The reality is this: being misunderstood is a price of authenticity in a society that favors conformity. And the Sigma male pays that price daily. He's misread as cold, mistaken for arrogant, labeled distant, quiet, aloof. But what the world often misses is the incredible depth behind his stillness, the ferocity of thought behind his calm, and the quiet discipline that guides his every step. He's not trying to impress. He's not here to compete. He's not playing the same game, because he sees life through a lens untouched by noise and ego. His sense of purpose comes from within. His validation is self-generated, and his path, while lonely at times, is guided by an unrelenting truth. He was never meant to be like the rest. What others call strange, he calls freedom. What they see as detachment, he lives as clarity. His solitude is not exile, it's sanctuary. And while others chase crowds and cling to attention, he finds power in silence and strength in solitude. If you've ever felt this way, like you move differently, think more deeply, feel more cautiously, it's not because something is wrong with you. It's because the world is loud, and you are tuned to a quieter frequency. You don't have to explain that. You don't have to defend it. And you definitely don't need to change it. Let them misread you. Let them talk. Let them underestimate what they don't understand. You weren't made to be understood by everyone. You were made to stand firm in who you are, even if no one claps for it, even if no one gets it. Because your power isn't in being recognized. It's in being real. And that doesn't need an audience. It just needs you. Do you resonate with the ideas I shared in this video? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're interested in more content about Sigma males, explore the other videos on this channel. Thanks for watching.